Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to season 4 of the Birding Today podcast. Time has flown by so fast, and actually next month it's going to be a year since I started this show, so it's been a fabulous ride. For season 4, I have some exciting news. So with Craig Boase from Wild Portraits, we've put together a little competition, a little giveaway of 2 pieces of artwork drawn by Craig Boase. So these are A5 sized prints. Each print is individually hand signed by Craig, and so I've got 2 of those to give away. One is of a spotted pardalote, and I'll pop it on the video here for you guys who are watching on YouTube. And the other one is of a Cocos buff-banded rail, the endangered subspecies found on Cocos Island off WA. So for 2 lucky listeners, here are the conditions of entry for the competition. You need to like the Birding Today podcast Facebook page on Facebook and the Wild Portraits Australia Facebook page as well. Once you've done that, I need you to write to me at birdingtoday@gmail.com and tell me what your favourite episode of the podcast is and why. And once I've got that, you'll go into the draw, and 2 lucky winners will be randomly selected to receive these artworks. So it's an exciting new thing, and hopefully it goes well. So let's jump into the episode. Just before we do, though, I also want to give a quick shout out to Roy Doerig, and I posted this on the Facebook page as well, who sent this wonderful book, Neville Cayley's What Bird Is That? And again, for you guys who are watching on YouTube, I'm holding it up, and it's quite a big book. So again, thanks Roy for this generous act. It was fabulous to be leafing through this, and it'll provide entertainment for years to come, I'm sure. All right, that's it for now, and let's jump into season 4, episode 1 with Owen Lishmund. Thank you, everyone. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Birding Today podcast, where birders come together to discuss the joy of birding. I'm your host, Thomas Doerig. It's been a long time, so thanks everyone for tuning in. This is brilliant, and I'm excited to get back into it. So today's guest, to kick off season 4, first started taking notice of birds when he was 11 years old and became fascinated by what birds were in his neighbourhood, and would go looking for them with a point-and-shoot camera in hand. It blew his mind to see birds he didn't even know existed, virtually on his doorstep, and it quickly snowballed into a full-blown birding hobby which has taken him all over Victoria and a large part of Australia. He's been lucky enough to see a lot of different amazing places and a good chunk of the resident birds in this country. He's also very interested in nature and ecology in general, studying zoology at university and in recent years having worked as a field ecologist. These days, his interests in wildlife and biodiversity have broadened significantly, and he'll go out of his way to look for birds, reptiles, frogs and mammals, which is something he still actively pursues in his spare time. So please welcome Owen Lishmund on the show. How are you going, Owen? Thanks for the time.
Hello, how are you? I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, good. This is great, and I'm really happy to be back. Like I said before we hit record, it's been a while since I've done one of these, so it's really good to be back. How are you?
Yeah, I'm real good, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, good. So as listeners will know, and as you know, because you've listened to a couple of these yourself, which I'm very flattered by, what is it about birding that brings you joy?
For me, I think it's just being out there, seeing amazing places, just appreciating all the birds you see along the way. There's always something different to see or something to learn about birds. Also, experiencing that with other people as well. There's a lot of good people in the birding community, so I really enjoy that side of it too.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the joy that we get is social and paradoxically focused a lot on the people as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You make friends and you definitely create a network, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that also kind of translates into the whole story of birding. Like in the intro I just read out, so you started quite young when you were 11 years old. Tell me what sparked that. Like, I'm always interested in finding out that first spark that people have. How did it happen for you?
Yeah, it's funny. Like we lived in Sydney when I was very young. I didn't really have an interest in birds. We moved down to Melbourne, and I kind of used to like watching the rainbow lorikeets feeding on fig trees in the neighbour's yard. And one day I saw these other parrots that were kind of all green, and I kind of thought, oh, what are they? Like they look interesting. Went into the old bird book and found out they were like musk lorikeets, and I was kind of fascinated. I'm like, oh, they're really cool. So then I kind of thought, well, what are all the other birds around my neighbourhood that we get here? So I just kind of walk around the streets and try and work out what everything was, and it just grew from that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like it's the wonder that you have of what's out there, isn't it? And the unknown, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you became a birder as such in Melbourne, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Uh huh. And what do you think of this? Was one of our questions the topic of this main episode, I think, because I haven't done an episode, I don't think, so solely dedicated to Victorian birding. And Victoria is such a populous state, and it's probably where there are the most birders in Australia in terms of states. Maybe I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, maybe in terms of birders per area, I think it might be.
And so, what do you think makes Victoria so good for birding?
I think it's because we have such a diversity of birds and habitats in a really small area, and also you can kind of drive comfortably in a day and get to anywhere in the state. You can drive for like 5 hours and be in the Mallee, or you can go 5 hours the other way from Melbourne and be in East Gippsland in the wet forests. Also, I think the population density allows a really good birding community in this state, and it kind of a lot of people cotton onto it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that loops back to what we were saying about the joy of birding being people orientated at
Yeah,
times.
definitely.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And what about in terms of where you go birding most often? Like, I always like to ask this because most of your birding isn't done in big epic trips to the outback. Most of our birding
No.
is just local, isn't it? Like as much as we would like it to be in the outback. So where do you go for birding most often these days?
My local patch would be Banyule Flats Reserve in Viewbank because I can kind of jump on my bike and ride there in about 15 minutes. And it's a good local patch. Like it's probably one of the in the top dozen kind of birding sites in Melbourne. Like you've got a wetland and you get some waterfowl and you've got a little bit of forest along the Yarra, so you can kind of get that diversity in a small area.
Absolutely. Oh, the Banyule Flats. I remember that. Yeah. It's his favorite spot of my dad's actually. He goes there quite a lot, and you've got a lot of there's a powerful owl that hangs around there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And so that's sort of the urban birding portion of things that I also really am interested in, like how we have modified birds' habitat, but they still find pockets where they can thrive and keep coming. Like I really like that. And anywhere else, where's the next place that you go to if not Banyule Flats?
In terms of locally, maybe Wilson Reserve in Ivanhoe. Yeah, that might be my second go-to spot. It's kind of pretty another kind of close one that's got some nice forest along the Yarra.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be my backup.
Uh-huh. And the great thing is with Melbourne, especially, I think, is that when you do go to these places, you'll often bump into people that are also birders, and that
Yeah,
just
definitely.
and that's again what you were saying about connecting with others. It's the same along the Cairns Esplanade, of course.
Oh yes, I did go there a few times, and it's a great spot.
It's so good, and it's got that vibe, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
that that all places that are good for birds have, when birders congregate. And And so, talking about destinations as well, and why Victoria is so good for birds, what's your favourite destination in Victoria? Like, if you could choose a long weekend and just get out there, where would it be?
I'm gonna have to say Harlequin.
My
It's just
man.
such a good spot.
It's so good out there, man. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. Why? Why do you like it out there?
I just love the Mallee. And Hatters is really diverse. Like it's a cool spot. You've got the Murray River, you've got the kind of red gum and black box forests, and then you've got the Mallee with spinifex, and you get your emu wren and grassy wren and your quail thrush and all the parrots there. It's just a ripper spot. Good spot for camping too.
Yeah, yeah. You've got the camping is a great. Like I would say, not all birders are campers,
No.
but for me, definitely it's linked. You know, just some of my best
Yeah.
experiences in birding have been while I was camping. You know, either
Yeah, I
alone
agree.
or with fellow birders. It's part of it, isn't it? And Hatter's such a great place for that. Oh,
Yeah, totally. I could happily just spend the whole long weekend there.
yeah, for sure. When was the last time you went?
Um, Good question. Maybe, or maybe earlier this year, I think.
Nice.
I reckon maybe Easter weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Birding Today podcast. It's great to have you with us. If you're enjoying the show, don't hesitate to leave a positive review on whichever podcast app you're using at the moment. This really helps with getting the podcast up in search results and reaching more people. Thank you, and back to the show. That's a great thing. Again, that Melbourne's so centrally located, and you've got so many different things on either side, and going south as well on the pelagics that you get on the Southern Ocean. Are you a big fan of pelagics?
Yeah, I quite like them. I did quite a few Port Fairy and one Portland Pelagic over the years. Yeah, had a pretty good run on them too. I haven't actually done one since I think 2018, so I'm in a bit of a drought. Yeah, I really need to get back out.
Probably with COVID, that's sort of dried everything up, didn't it? But I think they must be. I don't live in Victoria anymore, but they must be up and running again, right?
Yeah, they've been running most months this year. I'm pretty sure.
I was living in Cairns, of course. I wanted to go and see the tropical birds, the tropical seabirds. But the continental shelf is so far out that to see any real seagoing birds is a little bit trickier, I think, from Cairns.
Yeah, definitely. You have to go quite a long way south before you can.
Yeah, I know for sure. Yeah, definitely. And actually, just while we're on the Cairns oceanic habitat, recently I went out snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, cool.
And it was absolutely mind-blowing. And
yeah,
there's a danger that I transfer from being a birder to being a fish enthusiast, because the fish that you see out there, they're just, and we had this underwater camera, and so I was able to get some shots of the underwater fish and post them up on iNaturalist.
Oh, cool.
And then it's exactly like birding. Like, you have different species and different family groups and different habitats within the reef, and
it's awesome.
And it's like you were saying as well, in the intro that you sent me that I read out, is that it's not necessarily only birds, because we can have an appreciation for reptiles and mammals and so much of the natural world. What's your other kind of big passion apart from birds in terms of that sort of thing?
Yeah, probably reptiles and frogs and mammals. I'm pretty big on them now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it differ from birds? Do you go about it a different way?
Yeah, definitely. There's kind of different kind of approaches to finding reptiles compared to birds or mammals. Yeah, for sure. I think with the reptiles and mammals, there's a lot more kind of stuff you get spotlighting in frogs too, compared to birding. Like pretty much vast majority of the birds you can get during the day.
Definitely, yeah. And it's exploring that habitat, isn't it? And it's the intricacies of those ecosystems that really come to light when you look at the whole picture. But in terms, like I mentioned iNaturalist before, of course the real birding app for us is eBird. Do you like eBird? Do you use eBird a lot?
Yeah, I love eBird. I do use it a lot.
Why is that? What's so good about it?
It's just a really great way of kind of having somewhere where all your sightings can be organised and stored, while also contributing to a really good citizen science database. It's pretty handy for conservation and learning more about bird distributions and migration patterns and things like that. Yeah, I started using it back when it was Aramea, back in those days. like pretty early on when I got into birding.
And then they changed it. They made that change. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been on it for a while.
Hmm. And what would you say are the pros and cons of eBird?
Yeah, I think the pros are definitely the advantages of using it for research and conservation, and learned so much about birds for eBird. It's a great way of organising your own sightings, and you can store photos on it and
Mm.
things like that, which is really cool. Cons. Maybe one con would be it can sometimes increase disturbance. Like you have like spots, say like in Article Kind, for example, you've got like an inky track, and like pretty much everyone who has never seen a emu wren or a grass wren will go there, and then you kind of get increased traffic and a little bit more like people using playback to try and get good views and photos and wandering around through the bush. So maybe that's one downside of it.
Mm. Hmm. Like disturbing threatened species.
Yeah, or just having like certain areas where kind of it becomes this kind of effect where everyone just goes to the same spot.
Mm. But I think there is a way on eBird to flag an insensitive report, right? Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there are sensitive species now with like plains wanderer, for example, where they just don't show you where the records are.
Mm, that's interesting. Yeah, because it publishes all this information, and
Mm,
it's so geographically specific where everything is that
yeah,
for 95% of species it doesn't really matter because
no,
the populations are. But yeah, that's definitely something to consider.
yeah, but I think the positives far outweigh the negatives.
Mm. Because with the data that you can contribute to on
Yeah,
eBird, that sort of reverses in a way or compensates for that other factor of heightened disturbance
yeah,
in
for
a way.
sure. I think so.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess it for each species it's a bit different, but in terms of the habitat and the accessibility as well, of these some of these habitats where birds live are just so ridiculously inaccessible
Yeah, true that.
that they're protected by that fact. Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. Where's the most inaccessible place you've been to go birding?
Yeah, like anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
That's a good question. Maybe there's some the outback places I've been to that have been pretty remote. The outback South Australia. Some of those areas along the Birds of the West was like you track, you kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Wow. Yeah.
I've been all through Big Desert in Victoria too, which is a wilderness area. Like you're not, there's no tracks away from like the main road sort of thing if you go west into the actual wilderness area, which is pretty cool.
Mm. And do you usually go birding alone in those places, or do you like to have you got like a group of birding mates?
Yeah, how to narrow it down. I've been joining with heaps of groups of mates over the years, so and there's, yeah, plenty of people in Victoria too. So I'm usually out with other people.
Hmm. No, for sure. Yeah, and there's benefits to both, and this is a theme that has been in the podcast since the beginning. Really, is solo birding versus group birding.
Yeah,
Do you have a preference as to which, or does it depend on the day?
yeah. I think it depends on the situation. I like both.
Hmm.
It is good to go in a group. You can kind of share the experiences and have good company. But birding on your own, you can kind of just beat to your own drum and do your own thing. So there's advantages of both.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The next sort of topic that has also been recurring in the podcast is the fact of the reality of being a good birder. Do you have any thoughts on what makes a good birder?
Good question. Maybe I'd probably start by saying it's good to learn the calls. Like so many of the target species I've looked for, I've found by knowing their call and kind of tracking them down through that. That really helps.
Hmm.
Yeah, that'd be the main thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So many of my guests have said that. Like that's a
Hmm.
very first thing, which I don't know. I still have to do a lot of learning, especially because I've moved around a lot in Australia. I was
Yeah.
in Melbourne and then in Coffs Harbour and then up now up here in Cairns. So it keeps changing. I keep learning the local calls and then again and again
Yeah.
and I've got to relearn and
Your area is crazy. Like I was up there and kind of got into the rainforest and kind of just hearing other calls. I was just kind of like, well, what are these things? I don't even know
yeah.
many of these calls. Made it a bit hard, but
Oh, for sure. Where did you go when you were up here?
so I went up with my mate Nathan Rusa, Sydney Birder. We did the first couple of weeks. Went up through the outback, went through Cunnamulla, Yellow Bore, up and hit the wet tropics. Did the tablelands for a couple of weeks in Cairns area. And then I went up to the Cape. My friend Mark Camilleri in Cairns was kind enough to offer me to take me up to the Cape. So we went up to Iron Range for a week, which is awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then came back down and slowly made my way down the coast, kind of Townsville and Angla, and then back home from there.
Yeah. So cool. I've got to get up to Iron Range. Is it very different, would you say, from the rest of the country in terms of
Yeah,
hmm,
it's really unique. Like I kept thinking that when I was there, it's got that real kind of Papua New Guinea influence in the biodiversity.
yeah.
There's a few birds up there, kind of those sort of birds that don't get anywhere else, like the Manuka,
Yeah.
yeah, that sort of thing, the kingfisher.
Did you get any lifers on this particular trip or
Yeah, I think I got 88 bird lifers, which is crazy.
wow, 88.
I've never done any of coastal Queensland north of about Sunshine Coast, so
Oh,
pretty much
wow.
everything up there was just new.
Definitely. Oh, what was the best bird, the highlight?
Oh, that's really hard. Hmm. Yeah, that's so tough. Maybe golden-shouldered parrot.
Oh, nice.
That was
Yeah.
one of those sort of dream birds for me. Like when I was young, I used to really dream about seeing those termite nesting parrots, like the golden-shouldered and the hooded parrot.
Uh-huh.
And yeah,
Uh-huh.
we went to the station on the Cape where you get them, and we rocked up to the bird feeder out front, and they were just on the feeder when we got there.
Wow. Easy, easy lifer. Oh, that's brilliant. That's so cool. Yeah. And obviously you took a lot of time to go and do these trips. Like not only this trip, but of course all the other trips that
Yeah.
you've done in your birding life. What really interests me increasingly is for us birders the balance between work life and birding life and how we manage that and how we motivate ourselves to keep birding when stuff's going wrong at work.
Yeah.
You've got stress, you've got problems that can be personal or familial or relational or whatever. Like how do you balance birding time with the rest of life?
Yeah, it can be tricky. I've sort of been really lucky that I've been able to bird throughout a lot of my work in the last few years. So I haven't really had to deal with that issue so much.
Yeah, yeah, that's lucky. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's that's a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
hmm And do you as someone in that position, would you have tips for example, someone who doesn't have that sort of option, like who has a 9 to 5 job, Monday to
Yeah.
Friday, and only has weekends? What would you prioritize? Maybe what would you say would be the best way to think about it, about managing
Mm.
work time and birding time? If any, you might not have any thoughts on it, but
It can be tough. I guess just probably even if you can only get out like once a week to a local area, it's still kind of a great way to unwind. And but when you're out birding, it's kind of removes the other stresses. Like you're just out in the bush and seeing birds, and nothing else really matters at that point in time. So I would just probably recommend to try and just get out,
hmm
just even if briefly, like once a week or two, sort of thing.
hmm
But I know it can be hard.
for sure. And I think every birder has a slightly different situation. Like someone listening
Hmm.
might be that kind of person. The same as you, who is is free a lot of the time to go birding, thanks to work and other situations. But someone else might not have as much time, which which is fine. And it does mean when you don't have as much time, the time that you do spend out there is made really precious in a way. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you sort of, when you're doing it a lot, you sort of end up taking it for granted a little bit.
Are you guilty of that?
Yeah, I think I probably have been.
In what way do you think? Like, do you realize, oh, this is like when you're out, or like when you're home looking at the bird books, or
Yeah, when you're out and doing it a lot, you just kind of get a bit blasé, like. I was back in 2019 and 2020. I was working for Latrobe, actually doing bird surveys for them in like Little Desert and Big Desert. And so I got to spend the whole springs of those years out there just doing bird surveys non-stop.
wow,
It was really cool because 2019 was kind of a normal year, and then 2020 we had that massive influx of inland nomadic birds from the arid zone, which all came down into Victoria because the conditions were good in Victoria, but they dried out inland. So we'd go out and do a survey, and like crimson chat would be like one of the most common birds at every survey site, and there'd be a few orange chats popping up everywhere and stuff like that. And like I wanted to see crimson chat for a long time, and then you kind of just end up passing him off. Oh yeah, there's a few more crimson chats.
oh yeah, that. It's always nice. I like Australia for that. It's
Yeah,
there's a high levels of nomadism.
yeah, it's great.
Mm.
Yeah, I love the outback.
Yeah, I love it too. I would live out there. Like it's just,
Yeah,
and the birds are so special as well. And so when you do these surveys and when you're out birding, sort of as as your own time and as your hobby and as your passion, do you consider yourself a bird photographer at all?
yeah, definitely. I quite enjoy it.
Cool.
I try and do a fair bit of photography. For me, it's just a fun thing I do on the side. Like, if I don't get a photo of a bird, I don't really mind.
Mm,
But I do
mm.
carry my camera around and try to get photos of stuff. Yeah.
And what's the main aim of having your camera on you? Is it there? Is that at the back of your mind, like, oh, if something rare shows up and nobody will believe me if I report it without a photo?
There's a little bit of that. I think mainly I kind of just enjoy trying to get good photos of stuff. It's kind of a good feeling when you reel off a good shot.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Takes quite a lot of kind of patience and a little bit of strategy to be in tune with what the bird might do next.
Mm. And that requires knowledge of the species, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. And a question to frame all of this that I've found useful in these conversations is when you see a bird and you're not sure what it is, you know what I mean. Like when you're walking and there's a flurry of movement.
Yeah,
Do you first lift up your binoculars or your camera first?
definitely binoculars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm. Hmm. And what about when you see a flame robin perched on a fence and you know it's a flame robin even with the naked eye?
yeah,
Would that be the camera?
yeah. I reckon it would be.
Mm.
I don't actually have a good photo of a flame robin, so it definitely would be the camera.
Mm. They're beautiful. Oh, I haven't seen
Yeah,
one in
they
a
are.
while. They're not up here, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
true. You have some cool robins out there.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, we've got our own array of beautiful robins. That's for sure. But the southern robins are great as well.
Yeah, they are. Oh, I love all the red and pink and orange robins. They're cool.
Yeah, yeah. So much, variation
Yeah,
in color. It's beautiful.
yeah, and we get them all around here too, which is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. These are some pied currawongs that I managed to get some audio of in Wattle Park down in Melbourne. Such an interesting call. One of the one of the questions I had here written down is how far have you gone to chase a rare bird? Is there an experience that comes to mind?
Yeah, pretty far. Yeah, I think was it 2016 or 17 going for the Lucian turn.
Oh, of
So it was
course.
me, Bernie O'Keefe, Scott Baker, Matt McRae. It was around that kind of end of the year period where you've kind of all got a bit of spare time.
Hmm.
So we all jumped in one car and drove through the night, like 1,200 K straight to Old Barney, Port Macquarie to see this pen because it was the first time they'd been caught in Australia. It was just really exciting.
Yeah, wow.
We
Did you
did the
have any
same. Sorry, you go.
did you have any breaks on the way there or just straight?
Oh, just a short break sort of thing. Like we sort of left Melbourne as it was getting dark and then rocked up there with barely any of the night left. Like I think Matt was really tired and went to go set up his tent and try to get a bit of sleep, but then we went and found the tent or something.
Yeah. Oh
So
wow. That's pretty far, yeah, definitely. Oh, and you got them you got them like that
yeah,
there
we
and then.
did.
Yeah.
There was a group of about 10, I think, from memory.
Uh-huh.
We did the same thing to Whyalla in 2019 when the citrine wagtail was there. Went similar distance, about 1200k. It was me, Phil Peel, and Dan Ashdown, and Matt McRae again. We all just drove through the night straight to Whyalla.
Wow. Yeah, that's just there must be so much camaraderie in in that car, when you're on the way up.
Oh, it's good times.
Yeah, good times for
That's
sure.
one of the most enjoyable things about it, to be honest.
Mm. So you wouldn't go necessarily on your own to do these if no one else was available
Mm.
to see that citrine wagtail that day. Would you have gone on your own?
Yeah, maybe, but I wouldn't have done it like that.
How would you have done it?
In a more sensible way.
Yeah,
Taking a
yeah,
bit more time to get there and not done it overnight.
yeah,
You can do that sort of thing when you've got multiple people, but
yeah.
on
You
your
can
own, it's a
rotate the
lot trickier.
driving and
Yeah, and the time passes quicker too.
yeah, no, definitely, yeah. And then you can you have that shared celebration when you finally get the bird.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good feeling.
Uh huh. Um, what about this year so far? End of well, when this
Mm.
comes out, it'll be September. But what's the best bird that you've seen this year so far?
Mm. Yeah, probably the parrot. Golden shouted parrot. I have
Yeah,
to go with that.
that really left an impact.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Um, well, this is great. Talking about birds and the joy we get from them. Um, as listeners will know, I'm very big into video, and
Oh, cool.
and I think video is so powerful to capture so many different aspects of birds' natural history and their habits, behaviors, and the way they forage, and yeah, I just get joy from that as well. And we were talking about photography earlier. It's the same sort of thing. You get a joy from capturing that moment,
Yeah.
which I was at the Katana wetlands the other day, and I got this really great footage of brown-backed honeyeater, which I was really happy with.
Oh, cool.
And it's just, yeah, they were being really, they're really chilling out and just, preening on the branch. I could get a perfect frame like that, just get the tripod working, and it was just great. And it's those moments that we live for as birders.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
It took me a while to find the Grand Black Tunny eater. The only one I ever saw was at Katana Wetland, just on the path.
Oh, really? Yeah, interesting. Yeah. What about what's the and so let's talk about Victoria as in the first instance, and then Australia as a whole. What's the Victorian bird that you've still dipped on that you haven't got yet? That's
um, I reckon probably Salmon's albatross.
ah
Back when
okay.
I was doing projects semi-regularly, there was a few times where I didn't go and they got one, so I need to try and get after that at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's a good time of year to go at the moment.
Yeah, true.
And what about Australia as a whole? Is there and leading towards the sort of conclusion of the conversation is do you have a dream Australian bird that you haven't seen and
Mm,
and then in the whole world a bird that you haven't
yeah.
seen and that you'd love to see? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Australia, I think you'd probably have to say night parrot, wouldn't you?
maybe.
It's just almost impossible to see and just pretty fascinating, like just mind blowing when they got rediscovered back years ago and photographed in the wild for the first time.
Have you tried to go for it seriously yet?
No, not properly. I've been kind of into where they would probably occur, but I've never had a proper go.
Wow. Wouldn't that be a dream? Even just to hear one, you know?
Yeah, even just be when you're right.
Uh-huh.
I think in the world, maybe I reckon harpy eagle, like seeing one hunting and doing his thing, like this massive eagle that just goes hunting for sloths and monkeys, and
Yeah.
it'd just be epic.
It's just something. Yeah, it's incredible. I lived in South America for a bit, and I looked for them, but no luck.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, so many dream birds.
yeah.
I'm the type of person who has multiple dream birds that rotate and that change constantly. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I think most of us are like that.
yeah, for sure. And that's sort of, it's interesting to think about the birds specifically, but also the locations. Is there like a location in the whole world that you'd love to go to if you could?
Maybe Central and South America.
Mm,
Just the diversity of birds there's off the chart.
yeah,
Just
for
hear
sure.
about these bird tornadoes in the rainforest.
Yeah,
Species species. That'd be pretty cool.
mixed flocks. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think for me, where would I go? Like it's the same thing. Like I'll just changes every time, but
Yeah.
these remote corners of Africa, you know, where
Oh
I'm
yes.
particularly drawn by places that are underbirded, either for for safety reasons, like potentially like these corners of Africa, and then the same can be said for South America actually.
Yeah.
That it's you gotta have your wits about you. But I just feel that the birds there in those places must be so cool, like because they're so
Mhm.
under. It's like, and I've got all these books, all the birds in the world, by Josep Del Hoyo.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, just
Yeah.
leafing through that, like as an armchair birder, is brilliant.
Yeah. Those underrated places have that sort of frontier feel about them. Like you never know what's gonna turn up there and what you might see.
Yeah,
It's
no,
kind of
definitely.
similar to that feeling when you're just getting into birds and everything's kind of new.
Yeah, no, that's right. And that's another topic actually. Is you've been birding how many years?
Um, probably I think 15 now.
Wow. Yeah. With all that experience, is there yeah, for any new birders listening, which I know there are, because
Mm.
uh, what would you recommend as advice from Owen Lishmund for these beginner birders?
I think above all, just enjoy the experience.
Mm.
That initial period where you're starting out is just so great because everything kind of feels like a new discovery. Like there's birds that you didn't know existed, and you all of a sudden seeing them.
Mm. Hmm. And that harkens back to how you started, didn't it? When you were
Yeah, for
in,
sure.
yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
yeah, new birds just have so much to look forward to. Like there's just so many places you haven't been to, and most of the birds in the country you haven't seen yet, and you've got it all ahead of you, sort of thing. So
Yeah. There's so much potential,
yeah,
and I think that's what entices me a lot also about these other animals, like insects and fish and
yeah,
mammals.
true.
It's like the potential there is, especially with insects and fish to an extent, that the number of species that you could see is amazing, and 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 I thought about this when I was at the Great Barrier Reef snorkeling. It's like, oh, these fish, you can just go snorkeling. You don't need to necessarily go out and fish them as classic fishing. Just go snorkeling
Yeah,
and take an
true.
underwater camera, and then you don't harm them, and you leave them alone, and you leave them in their habitat, but you take a picture of them, which is in a
Yeah,
way, photography is like modern hunting, in a
yeah,
way.
for sure, definitely. I think that's why people like it so much.
Hmm.
It kind of, yeah,
It's got all the advantages of hunting, but you're leaving the animal alone and in its habitat, and but you still have a proof of that you shot it in a way. Does
yeah,
that make
exactly
sense?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally. I think you've explained it perfectly.
I think
Yeah,
it's really interesting, and that can be said, like I said, for everything. But um, but yeah, well, Owen, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I think that when next time you're up here, definitely give us a bell. I must have been. I mean, I'm working a lot.
yeah.
I'm working full time, so it probably wouldn't have been possible anyway. But even if just on the Esplanade,
Oh
we
yeah,
when you're up here next time, we'll get together and so keep in touch. And so I'll by the time this releases, like I said, it'll be September. But
Yeah.
definitely keep in touch. And thanks for your time, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure, mate. Yeah, I look forward to birding with you one day. Yeah, I'll have to come back up your way. For sure.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, and you can sleep on my couch and chill out. All right,
Thanks,
man.
mate. Appreciate it.
See ya. Bye.
See ya.